I want to invite you on a silly journey today. I want to invite you to join me on a journey by which we throw away the concept of free will. I'm going to ask you to assume that you have no free will, that I don't have any free will, that nobody in the world has any free will. Now, that might feel a little bit weird, but stick with me and just pretend for a moment, almost as if you're kind of putting on a different coat and seeing how it fits. Yeah. Because I have thrown away my concept of free will. I did it a few years ago, and I have to say it has delivered immeasurable benefits. So it's a workable thing. It helps you. The reason I'm doing this video, if you're one of these people that kind of keep a score about themselves, if your sense of self-confidence, your sense of self-worth is based around the judgments that you are making about the actions that you have taken in the past. And let's be honest, most people tend to over-exaggerate their errors, over-exaggerate the mistakes, and not quite dismiss, but certainly diminish the successes. Then if you're one of these people that keeps a score of themselves, it's likely that it's going to be kind of filled with mistakes, with guilt, maybe with shame. Maybe it's got as far as, look at these things that I did, look at the consequences of that, and therefore I can prove to myself that I'm either bad or stupid or untrustworthy, or I'm not thinking things through properly, something along that line. Yeah. Now, if you're one of these people that kind of looks at their mistakes in life and go, well, human beings make mistakes, then that's fantastic. Um, but if you're not, if you keep this kind of this scorecard approach, then hopefully what I'm going to talk about today is the easiest possible way for you to become your best friend, to basically go with what you are and start to follow your golden path. Start to follow what is truly, truly yours rather than judging yourself. Now, this has to be a little bit perplexing, right? This has to be a little bit paradoxical. This is supposed to be a therapy channel, right? A hypnotherapy channel, a channel for helping you go for your goals, for taking actions, for seeing results, shifting your worldview and adjusting your life accordingly and receiving the benefits from that. How on earth does any of that fit if suddenly we're talking about there's no such thing as free will, right? So I understand if there's this kind of alarm bells going off in your head. Plus, our gut feels that we make choices, right? That we make decisions and then we view the consequences of them. So therefore, obviously what I say, it's all going to be a little bit metaphorical. It might be a little bit paradoxical, but please stick with me because I'm not going to go through every element of the philosophical and scientific explanation for there being no free will. You can do that on your own accord if you choose to do so. I'll go through it pretty quickly, or my experience of it, my understanding of it. But what I want you to see at the end of this, it doesn't really matter to a certain extent whether, the scientific community is utterly 100% convinced about this, which the majority of them are in actual fact. But that isn't the goal of this. The goal of this is to see how much more workable it is, how much more beneficial it is to your personal well-being to start to adopt this approach. Okay. So let's start. Let's do a little bit of the theory. Okay, what is it that makes me convinced that there's no such thing as free will, even though my gut and my conscious brain kind of try and attach their significance to the choices that personally I've made in my life, right? So why would I go against all of that? So science to start with. fMRI scans. If you put a helmet, a set of sensors on your brain, and you evaluate the moment that people become aware consciously of making a decision, you will see from the fMRI scans that their brain was lit up many seconds before, 7 or 10 seconds before. It is possible to predict what people's choice will be way, way before they actually make the choice, and way before they even get an inclination that they have made the choice. So from a purely electro-evaluative perspective, we can say that our conscious mind, at the very least, is not making the decision. That the decision has already been made, it's already being implemented seconds before that comes up to consciousness. Now, maybe you therefore want to say, okay, so my consciousness isn't making the decision, but it's still me making the decision. It's still me, even if it's my automatic processes that are making the decision. Yeah. So, so we'll go with that. Okay. So what is the rest of us? Yeah, what is the back of our mind? The back of our mind are all of the autonomic processes. It's the thing that keeps our breathing regulated. It's the thing that keeps everything working in our body to the extent that it can be. Yeah. It's the way that we drive the car without ever thinking about it anymore, because we have habituated that um, series of movements and awarenesses to the point that we can just kind of hand it off and it runs at the back of our mind. It's our gut reactions, it's our automatic responses, all of that and a whole lot more. But let's just go with that. So some of that is purely biological, right? Some of this is this kind of concept of nature versus nurture. So we have genetic capability, which gives us the ability to do certain things. And then there is a nurture element where we learn things that are conscious, that have come to us, that we have noticed, that we have come to conclusions about, that we have habituated, that we've handed over to the back of our mind. Yeah. So all of those rules and policies and procedures and understandings and stories and dangers and skills and all that kind of stuff is all running in the back automatically. And so things occur, and then we make decisions at the back of our mind based around these stimuli and coming to conclusions based around those rules of thumb, and off they go. Some, personally, I don't think that's free will, right? Because there was no thought process involved as far as my conscious mind is concerned. But it was very much coming from me, let's say, based around my experiences of the past. But let's go even further from that. So I kind of envisage my world as a little bit like I am a pinball in a pinball machine, okay? But in this pinball machine, there are thousands of pinballs, and each of these pinballs is a person, or a furry animal, or the wind, or an earthquake, or a politician. All these pinballs are bouncing around in my pinball machine. Now, you can question whether or not there is somebody outside pressing on the flippers if you wish to do so. You can question, maybe you want this pinball to be enormous, the pinball machine to be the size of the Earth, for example. That's a possibility. And then there is another pinball machine for all the other planets, all the other stars, and there are a multitude of pinballs. Or maybe you want to make your pinball machine the size of the entire universe. It doesn't really matter. The point is that there are a gazillion pinballs bouncing around inside this vast pinball machine. And let's say I'm one of those pinballs. Inside me, there are 7 to the power of, I believe it is 28 zeros of variant of things that are constantly going on in my organism that are at play. So within me, there's 7 to the power of 28 zeros of stuff going on. And then there are, what do we say, 8 billion people, Lord knows how many rabbits and hedgehogs and frogs and water molecules and air and wind and aeroplanes and everything, right? Everything. So if I happened to have complete knowledge of all things, of every single thing, every other pinball, and all of the motivations of every other pinball that is in the machine, even then, I still couldn't come out with a conclusion that was 100% accurate, because I'm talking about a machine that is so complex that even out of predictableness comes unpredictability. Yeah, because it is simply, certainly my brain power doesn't have the comprehension to do that, but it is incomprehensible. Random stuff occurs and ripples out. Yeah. So I can't make predictions about how my actions are going to impact the world. I can't make predictions about how all of these vast number of chemical and electrical processes in my mind and in my body are going to create a choice. I can't predict any of that. What I can do is I can fit the facts to my experience after the fact. Yeah, so I can tell myself afterwards, yeah, I made that choice. Yeah, it feels like me. So maybe you want to say, I don't know, look back on certain times in your life that you did make a choice. You did make a choice, and it had a huge consequence. Yeah, getting married, having children, moving house, your first job, your first specialization at school or at university, any of these things that had a massive implication for your life going forwards. And you can kind of see that you made a thought process, you came to a decision about some of those things. Surely that is free will, right? But in practice, all of those decisions have been based around the hard wiring that you had up until that point in time. So although it felt as if you made a choice that was all of your own, it was based around everything that was there before. It ended up being entirely predictable because you were you at that moment. And it doesn't matter if you look at it with the benefit of hindsight. At the time that you made those decisions, that was kind of the only decision that you could ever have made. Yeah. If you look back on any of those decisions and you ask someone who was very significant in your life at that time, your mother or something like that, the likelihood is that they're going to go, yeah, obviously that was what you were going to say, because they can see you from a different perspective. It felt to you like you made a consequential decision, but to them it was almost automatic. Yeah. So from a biological point of view, we certainly aren't making conscious decisions. We're making decisions based around all of the automatic processes which are running around inside of our head. Our ability to comprehend the choice, to comprehend the potential result of that is literally impossible, because we simply can't comprehend the vast amounts of data that would be required. And even if we could, there is this element of sheer chance that is based around the bazillions and billions of things at a subatomic level, all the way out to the entirety of the universe and the friction between them and the interplay, and none of that is sufficiently predictable. So we can't make a reasoned decision. We end up doing rules of thumb where we run an autopilot and we make decisions. And then we backtrack and we kind of go, yeah, that was me. And then we see the results of that. And then we judge ourselves based around that. And we say we did a good job, we did a bad job. Ugh. Thus comes guilt, shame, skills, failures, self-esteem, lack of self-esteem, the pecking order, the scorecard that we build for ourselves. If you can drop that, if you can see, therefore, that the decisions that you have been making throughout your life, even though they feel like you, in practice are running on autopilot, then suddenly there's no need to judge yourself in the same way. Yeah. Suddenly you simply are you, whatever you is. Let's take this pinball metaphor a little bit further. Okay, so imagine in the pinball machine, and there's all these balls of everybody that's kind of bouncing around all over the place. Imagine that there's a sort of there's a level of vibration to the pinball machine. Okay, it's made of metal. It has a certain harmonic resonance, and when the balls are bouncing against each other, or when the flippers are kicking something up. It's introducing vibration to the system. And your ball has a certain harmonic resonance as well. Yeah. So there is a sort of there is a resonance to the system. Maybe you want to call that culture. Yeah. Maybe you want to call that mind. But there is a resonance to the system, and there is a resonance to you. And so even if you think that you're making your decisions as an individual, you are doing that as a consequence and as a counterpart of that broader resonance. Yeah. So you're like a little blip on a vibratory level which is existing within the universe by which we see. So we only see inside our pinball machine. Yeah, maybe there are other pinball machines out there as well. Maybe this is a localized pinball machine. Stick with the metaphor. We Even when we feel as though we're making an individual decision, in actual fact, we are making it in the context of our environment. That's what I'm trying to say. That environment shifts, its vibration shifts. Yeah. So when you push a kid on a swing, if you push the child on the swing in harmony with how they're already swinging, then their arc will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. If when they're coming back towards you, you kind of push them at the wrong time, then their swing reduces. Yeah. You can see this on a much kind of more explosive level. If you look at bridges, occasionally you'll notice that bridges are made where there's a problem with their harmonic resonance. You can get to the point where you'll see bridges, sometimes they simply smash into pieces because they've reached that point where their internal resonance starts to amplify what is coming at them to the point where it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and boom. Yeah. Consider this from your personal perspective. Okay, so we have let's call it a harmonic resonance. Yeah, we have a vibration. And the environment in which we're with, the pinball machine, has its vibration. We're living in a rather strange time at the minute. There is a lot of aggression in the world. The background resonance is getting a little noisier. It's getting more tetchy. There is a sense of anger and frustration and fear in the environment at large. Now, normally, this kind of stuff, we kind of feel with our ego that we are ourselves. But when there is a shift in what's going on outside, when our awareness is triggered, then just like the swing or the bridge, depending upon our resonance and the resonance of the system, those two may cancel each other out, or they may be amplified. So if you already have a fear in your mind, if you already have an anxiety or an anger or a frustration that has come from a fear or a hurt, a trauma which is driving an anger, and then the system around you, its vibration starts to shift to one which is more angry, more fear-based, more defiant. You can be influenced in ways that you can't quite put your finger on, but it has a huge impact. Yeah, it rises your own anxieties. You find yourself triggered in ways that ordinarily you wouldn't have been triggered by, because you have become an amplification of the system as well as your own, because the harmony between the two is very, very similar. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, even if you thought that you were like an entity that was able to make these decisions, we are constantly being influenced by all of the rest of the system. Yeah. The background of the system. Out of all of that, I have come to the conclusion, personally, don't really have much free will. That the things that I chose to do, even the things that led me to question the sense of reality, that led me to question my stories, that led me to self-reflect in a different way, that all of that, perplexingly, was, I'm not going to say preordained, I'm not going to say it was destiny, but it was done as part of an automatic flow of the cycle of life. It couldn't have been predicted in advance, but what occurred, what transpired, the product kind of occurred outside of my consciousness. It just occurred. Now that's great in a way, so I can look back upon all the things that I've done in the past with a lightness suddenly. It's curious. I'm less responsible. It would be unfair of me to kind of judge myself harshly because it's impossible, even if I had made the decision that I could have predicted all of the outcomes of all of those 1,000 things. And it turns out that the decisions that I made were 99.9% not mine anyway. They were automatically running. And that little 1% that was left was actually just the thought process of running at the front that were trying to backfit and try and tell me that I'm in charge. But it's a nonsense. Yeah. So suddenly I can lift that. How does that relate to this idea then of your personal well-being? So you've lifted the veil on what you consider to be your personal flaws, your shame-based stories, your guilt-based stories, and kind of seen that there's no foundation to them. So that's very useful in terms of lifting the problematic side. But then what about the directive side? What about the actions, the goals towards side? How do you reconcile that with this idea that there is no free will anyway? And for me, the most useful thing here is that effectively people, everybody, wears a mask to a certain extent. There is an authentic golden you inside, which then fits within the universe and presents a story. The predictable you, the you which is completely automatic, is the unthinking you. It is the unevaluating, unself-reflecting you. It's the autonomic process you. That is how everything ends up deriving. That's almost inevitable. But you can question above that what it is to be you. What is your higher self? What is maybe your pure self? What are your core values, your core truths? Truth is a complicated thing, right? It's very easy to lie. It's very hard to tell the truth, right? I can make stuff up anytime. It's costless. To come up with the truth, I have to come up with something reasonable. I have to check it out. I have to cross-check it. I have to fact-check it. I have to use other people as a sounding board and see whether they agree me. I have to maybe evaluate it in the light of history, other people's opinions, and so on and so forth. It's very hard to come up with the truth. So when you self-reflect upon what it is which is most of essence to you, what is an incontrovertible value to you, well, then you can start to look at your life, because if everything is automatic, if everything is just running on its rails and we have no free will, well, within that you still have your experiences, right? Your experiences are very much at a conscious level. They are at a perceived level. And so you can go after pursuit of happiness, you can go after pursuit of your goals, but suddenly you're doing it in harmony with the way that you blow in the wind, with the way that you vibrate. Yeah. If you remember, I talked a little while ago about, well, these automatic processes are habituated. Yeah. So if we consider, I don't want to get too metaphysical, but if we consider hate, anger, frustration as somewhat lower vibratory feelings, and love, joy, passion, peace as higher vibratory. I hesitate to use the word frequencies, but I can't think of a better word. Unfortunately, our language is based around what is translatable from one person to another, and that just apparently seems to work. So if we habituate the feelings of joy, of love, of compassion, of kindness, that will permeate the subconscious. That will permeate the autonomic processes because you live that on a daily basis, and suddenly you see love in all things. Your ego relinquishes with this idea that you have less free will than you thought. It dissolves. Your fellow man is more important somehow. They are, we are interdependent. We are to a certain extent all one. We're all these little pinballs dancing, trying to make sense of the world and and build a relationship, build a sense of harmony or happiness or whatever it is. And what comes out is the soup of all of these vibrations, of all of these people. So you can consider this eventually as all one, as one mind to a certain extent. But if we stick to this idea of how does that feel for me? Because inside of all of this, the only thing that really counts is your personal experience. Once you know yourself, once you have been able to stare at yourself, you've looked at the reflection of yourself, we can never see our own mind. We can never see our own consciousness, just like we can never see our own eyeballs when we're looking through them. But we can look at a partial reflection, let's say, based around the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, the ideas of injustice, the ideas of flow, the ideas of coming home. And we can get a feel for how it feels when we feel like we're coming home and what that means to us. And you can start to live your life based around that. And you live your life based around that, then suddenly that permeates the rest of you. And then when the noise is coming from the system, when a politician throws another strange thing at the world, your personal vibration is more authentic, it is more true, it is more integrated, and therefore the vibration which is coming from outside isn't being amplified by your fear. Instead, there is a sort of resolution there. There is a sort of almost a resistance. There is a pushback. There is a neutralization which comes from each of us individually knowing ourselves, of being ourselves, of accepting that we are part of the system, that we are going to flow in the ebb and flow of life's rich tapestry, but that within it, we are a thing. We are valid. We are true. We have experience. And we do, within that absurdity, have a choice as to what we perceive. Yeah. So it's a kind of a curious thing. Yeah. We have a choice over our perceptions. We have a choice over the way that we interpret the things that are going on. We have a certain choice over what we think is the good way for us to live our lives. It turns out that all of that is an inevitable process, and we are following our golden path even when we are rebelling against our golden path. But what is the meaning of life effectively? How does this fit with peace, harmony? How does it fit with whatever might be pressing on the flippers of the pinball machine? For me, that is a sort of a global consciousness. For me, that is a global mind. But for you, it might be faith, it might be religion. I think the metaphor is sufficiently broad that you can look at it in different ways and still come to your harmonious conclusions. Yeah. But it all starts with this idea of throwing away the concept of free will. Turns out the stuff just occurred. So you're not as bad as you thought you were. You're actually a good person. You did all of those things at all of those times in the past with a certain set of what you thought were your personal motivations. They were all inherited or judged and came to a conclusion. Turns out that that conclusion was entirely predictable as a one-off, but that what you felt from it was a whole series of consequences which then went on to compound or to negate what you previously knew, and such is the flux in your understanding of your self-esteem, your self-worth, your judgment. Let go of that, and you just are. In fact, there is no you. There is no I. Sometimes I go down the street and I start, and it sounds a bit ridiculous. It sounds a bit evangelical. I kind of go out and go, I love you. And I'm not speaking about anybody in particular. I'm speaking about all things. And then I throw away either the I or the you. So it either becomes I love or it becomes love you. Either of which feels fantastic. And then I throw away the other one. So all that's left is love. Because we each, as an individual, are a blip on this kind of film of global understanding, of mind, of global mind, of universalism, of consciousness. And we all reverberate off of each other. We all share in each other's experiences. We all share some knowledge. Some of what is going on in one person might drift off and be understood and affected by people in their area. Ripples that are sufficiently large might end up having a consequence upon broader flows within the system. But that entire system is a localized system when considered in the vastness of the everything of everything. There's a certain peace in that. There's a certain tranquility, a certain serenity, a certain harmony in all of that. And you can find faith in there, even if you don't believe in faith. I think that'll do. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Food for thought. All right. Take care. Bye.